Alright, I am back with another Destiny 2 video, and as I said, for the course of this month, I would be kind of touching on issues that are ongoing with the game, that have not been resolved, or just kind of bigger, generalized concepts. Guess where we've come back to? Blues. Blues has been a, what's it called, a bugaboo of mine, or is that even the word? Bugbear? Is that it? I don't know. An annoyance for me for quite some time, in that the way Destiny 2 handles blues, aka their lowest, the real lowest tier of loot, because greens and whites don't actually drop, is nothing short of a really minor annoyance that adds up exponentially over time. And oh, hello, Evie. Over the course of like your entire time playing Destiny, you have probably spent literal days of playtime dismantling and getting rid of blues that are crowding up your inventory or your postmaster or whatever. And this is true for pretty much every activity you play, as it rewards blues at more or less a 3-to-1 ratio of legendaries, I think is the general rule. And there are kind of like multiple factors as to why this is such an issue within Destiny and what is preventing it from being solved. The first is kind of the core of how Destiny operates and has always operated with its engrams. In lots of looters, pretty much all looters that I can think of for the most part, gear collection is something you have to do manually. So in a game like Borderlands, you will kill a boss and it will explode with this giant, shower of loot. And the loot will be whites and greens and blues and purples and orange legendaries. It'll be everything. And you kind of go through and sort through what you actually want. And you make, like, some stuff is auto-collect, like ammo and money, but the actual loot, you have to like manually look at each little beam of light and decide what you want. This is true in, just off the top of my head, Diablo, The Division. This was not true in Anthem, which, if we're using Anthem as a comparison here, that was a thing where you would walk over a sort of engram. That was even worse because you couldn't even tell what the engram was until the end of the mission. But Destiny is in that category. I kind of understand why they do this, in that they want to keep the focus on the action. So instead of like clearing a room and then having to manually go around to each thing and look at it and see the rolls and like do this and like see if you want to pick it up, it's just like either leave it on the floor so it goes to the postmaster, or walk over it and pick it up. And if you really, really want to check it, you can stop and do that, or you just keep going. Given how action-oriented Destiny is, I can understand that philosophy, and yet there are a few problems that come in conjunction with this. First of all, there is pretty much no use case for the blue tier of loot, short of a very, very short window of time where new players might be gearing up with blue loot before they start getting legendaries. But the amount of time where you will actually need to be using blues in Destiny before you can start getting legendaries is exponentially small, and not worth the fact that the game gives you 3 times as many blues as it does legendaries. Once you're kind of in the thick of it, like, you will be getting legendaries. You can get 2 or 3 legendaries like in the chest of a single Vanguard strike in a playlist. Like, it is not that hard to do, in addition to the other blues you will get. So like, I don't even buy the argument that blues are useful for new players or for kind of the leveling up process. Other games, that's true. Like, I'm playing, New World, obviously, as I keep tweeting about, despite the fact that so much of it upsets me. But that's a game where I'm 140 hours into it, and I am only just now starting to get like all purple gear at like level 54 or whatever I am. I've never even seen a legendary, like the highest tier. And that's a game that like uses the full spectrum of things. So I was at greens and blues for 100 hours so far. So like, in that game, not only, again, you get to choose to pick up gear, and there's plenty of just bad gear I've left on the ground in that game, but you will be using that gear like for a very long time in the game. It's not just like a short stretch of time before everything starts dropping as legendary. And I remember Luke Smith addressed this at one point. He said that they wanted to kind of change the way, or like make blues more valuable. But that was, I swear to God, that was like over a year and a half ago that he said that, and like nothing has changed with it. And then, so you combine these two things where blues have no use other than for very new players, or the occasional time where a blue can like gap fill a slot that's falling way behind, or like during an expansion where you level up really quick and like even a blue can be a power drop, but like who cares? Like that could easily be changed. So you combine that with the fact that you walk over an engram and pick them up, and the auto collect system, and you get the other problem where blues go to your postmaster. So you can't, to get around the fact that it's like, okay, I see a blue over there, I know I don't want it, but it is probably better to pick it up and manually dismantle it now instead of leaving it on the ground and shoving it into my postmaster, which I don't even know how full my postmaster is right now, and it could shove something more important out. And obviously we've all heard or experienced horror stories of collecting a basket full of blues and then having the, your ascendant shards and prisms shoved out of there, or some rolls you were saving in your postmaster for whatever reason. And that happens frequently, especially in activities where there's like a lot of kills, a lot of enemies, like a raid or something. Just blues drop by the boatload because you're killing so many enemies, and like after you kill a certain amount of enemies, that triggers like drops. And you can leave those on the ground, but they'll go to your postmaster. So you like kind of have to, like, in an effort to avoid slowing down gameplay by making you run over stuff, it does slow down gameplay because you have to run over them, pick it up, and then go to your inventory and dismantle them, so you're not like having stuff sent to the postmaster. Like if you open a chest and try and get a raid drop, and suddenly your inventory is full because you picked up too many blues. So all of this combines to be a really terrible system where blues are garbage loot with no real purpose outside of like a 5% use case, and you can't avoid getting them. Like you cannot just not pick them up. You cannot avoid them because they'll be sent to your postmaster. There's nothing. So the two options I see are either you delete blues from the game entirely and you recognize that like Destiny does not really have a tier loot system. It has legendaries and it has exotics, and those are the two tiers of loot, and that's it. I do not know if it is a valuable exercise to start kind of redesigning Destiny's loot tier system from the ground up, like 7 years in now. I know there used to be green and blue drops and there was a little more of a scale, but like now with the current system established the way it is, I don't know if it's worth the effort it would take to be like, okay, we're going to have whites and greens and blues and purples and then exotics. Like we're going to have the full spectrum, like all these other games. And it, like, Destiny has just evolved kind of past the need for that. And the value of the drops is in the rolls themselves, like the stats on armor, the rolls on guns, like that is what you're looking for in loot. And I don't think anyone really has as much of a problem picking up legendaries in the sense that like you just check the rolls, if it's bad you throw it away, but like there aren't enough of those where that's kind of an imminent problem. But combined with 2 or 3 blues for every legendary you get, then it's a problem. Then you spend all this time shuffling around your inventory, managing your postmaster, all this garbage. The second option is something that is always suggested that we had in Destiny 1, which is an auto dismantle option for blues. I believe the auto dismantle option was for greens in Destiny 1, if I'm remembering that right, where if you walk over a blue engram, or if it would go to your postmaster, you just instantly get the gunsmith material, and I think it's 100 glimmer instead. So it would be as if you dismantled it. You could toggle this on or off. So theoretically, if you were a new player that still needed blues, that would be one thing. You could still get them, or if you wanted, the off chance that a blue might give you a +1 in a slot if something's falling behind, you could still leave them on for that. I guess there's a third option, which is something actually Avengers does, where when you hit a certain power threshold, the game recognizes that you just don't want that kind of drop anymore. So I think it's Avengers that stops dropping blues when you hit whatever the current base minimal pack or max power is there. So in this case, this could be like if you hit the soft cap, and like blues are pretty much never going to like give you a power increase at that point, blues just don't drop for you anymore. I don't know if the coding of Destiny would allow that, or if that was easier than some sort of auto dismantle option, but I guess that is kind of a third quasi option besides that, and besides just deleting blues from the game entirely, which I also don't think is the worst thing in the world. It is weird to me that like of all the things that Bungie addresses and does, I think they're very good about absorbing feedback and implementing solutions, and I think they've done a good job of doing that more quickly ever since kind of all these revamps happen with the engine and stuff, and they make a lot more moves more quickly. But like, to me, shuffling around trials formatting for the last time and having, in-depth studies of that, and this, I get these are separate teams, but like, I think what is more imminently important to the average player is something you experience every single day while playing, which is just the mass of blues that you get. That is an utter waste of time to dismantle, and this has been a problem that has been around for years. And the only development I've seen is, I think now that like Gambit matches and Crucible games only give you 2 blues instead of 3 blues. It's like 2 blues and a legendary usually instead of 3 blues with like an optional legendary. I think that was the only change I noticed, but this is a problem. Like, I know it's kind of a meme at this point, but like, it is a genuine quality of life problem with the game that is not being addressed, that is not being talked about ever, really. And it seems like something that has slid under the radar, and it is not a good system, and it is, I think it's by far the most annoying component of the game right now. I think they have fixed a lot of other annoyances. Like, you can point to small things like, oh, they made all sparrows auto summon. Like, that was a great quality of life thing that, you know, there was no reason for them not to do that, and it took them a while, but they did it. But the blues thing is something they have not addressed in the least yet, and it needs some sort of focus. One of those 3 options, I think, is something they need to do. So anyway, I have no real expectations for that until maybe the Witch Queen, but like, even, you know, nothing's been promised, nothing's been talked about, this never comes up. So I am just once again putting it into the forefront of conversation, and we'll see if anyone listens. But it will be, I don't know, I'll wait at least a month till my next blues rant, and I will just do this periodically until it changes. So anyway, thanks for watching, and I will talk to you guys soon. Take care.